Hello, everyone. This is Emily Burley, president of ELS. Welcome to today's ELSX, and thank you for joining us. ELS is a community that brings together executive assistants supporting the world's most influential leaders. We cultivate professional development by providing an experience for assistants to connect and collaborate and contribute solutions to their greatest challenges. We're also the creator of the ELS Forum, a professional development experience for executive assistants held in 20 cities across North America. At the forum, attendees gain support, training, and inspiration from world-renowned instructors and peers to discover a renewed sense of purpose and passion in their career. If you're interested in attending a forum, you can find out more information at elsforum.com. Today, I am thrilled to partner with Diana Brandel, an internationally recognized expert in supporting C-level executives. Diana continuously supports the role of management assistants by speaking at international events and publishing various articles in Germany and abroad. Diana writes her own blog, The Socialista Projects, and is influencing the industry with her creative initiatives, such as launching the hashtag We Are In This Together. Hello and welcome, Diana.
Hey, everybody from Germany.
Today, Diana will be discussing onboarding a new executive and how to create an impact from day one. And there will be an opportunity to get your questions answered. So please submit your questions at any time via the questions tab on the webinar toolbar, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. You can go ahead and submit questions at any time there. A recording of the webinar and a certificate of attendance will be emailed to you tomorrow. And you can also download a PDF version of the slides, and that's under the handout tab on the right-hand side of your screen. It is now my pleasure to hand it over to Diana.
Thank you so much, Emily. Absolutely thrilled to be back again, giving a webinar for ELS. It's the second one. We did one last year. And today I think we're going to have a very interesting topic. I said that I actually live in Germany. My home base is Berlin, although I'm speaking to you now from beautiful Munich. I am in Bavaria because I'm actually teaching tomorrow and the day after here in Munich. I'm going to have a bunch of delegates waiting for a master class tomorrow and the day after. But usually my home base is Berlin. This is where I live with my husband and my little dog, Phoebe. We have a house outside of Berlin, away from the big city. I've been living there since 2009. I'm actually a girl around from the Frankfurt area, for those of you who are familiar with Germany. So basically in the middle of the country, but we've been moving a while ago to Berlin. And this is what I call home. This is where I live and where I have my family and friends. Maybe a little bit more background about Diana. I always say I'm one of yours. I've been doing this fantastic job as an EA for 17 years and more now. I'm a trained assistant. I went to a secretary school in Germany a long time ago. After I finished my school, I went to the US to be an au pair. And even there, I knew already that I wanted to work in an office environment. So once I got back from the US, I was in Washington, D.C. I went to the secretary school. Yeah, that's the name by then. It was secretary school. And I was trained to be an assistant. And before I even had my diploma in my hands, I had my first job. I grew up basically in the pharmaceutical business. I've been working for various companies, big companies like Sony, but I also started working in a startup scene in Berlin. So it was very interesting to see the various managers I had, of course, the various job descriptions I had, and this has helped me to become the person I am now, because almost 2 years ago I decided to be my own entrepreneur and to start my own business, teaching other assistant, coaching, mentoring, and simply be there for the profession in the industry and help management assistants to grow. I love to network. I'm a proud member of a European association called IMA. It's the International Management Assistance. I used to be a board member in Germany. I've been chairing the regional group in Berlin for many, many years, and it's incredible to see how important networking is for our industry. I also became a member of the US Association IAAP. It's fantastic to see what assistants are doing in the US, how they network, how they promote the profession, and how they work together. It's wonderful to see also the differences between Europe and the US. As I said, I started the Socialista projects, and it's a funny name. A lot of people keep asking me, so what's the Socialista, Diana? I always say I'm a very social person. I love to build bridges. I love to connect people. Every time when I meet someone in one of my workshops and seminars and they have a question, I always keep wondering who else might help them. Not only me, but who else can I introduce to this person? How can I bring people together? I'm a strong believer in the working out loud method, how organizations can share their best practices, can share their experiences, and actually really grow when they talk to assistants outside of their organization. I'm running my Socialista Projects blog on Facebook, and I would love to invite you to come over. I'm constantly releasing interesting interviews and content around our profession. You will see where I'm speaking, what I'm doing, like these webinars, like ELS is doing today. It is a wonderful community. It is read by assistants all over the world, and it's just a wonderful platform to come together for learning and networking and sharing. For me, it is very important to stay close to the industry. So whenever there's time left in my busy schedule, I love to be a freelance EA. Just last year, I was actually 2 months at a startup company in Berlin where I was back on the basis, working with a CMO and really getting a deep dive back into the business. It was wonderful to see how this company has been working, the role of the assistant there, and I was very, very blessed to see how much they actually invest in their admin stuff. And it was a wonderful experience for me. So it's always good to be back in the driver's seat because I used to love this profession so much. And this is why I dedicate now my time to train other assistants. So let's dive into the topic I brought to you today. It is about onboarding a new executive. And I'm sure that many of you have had this opportunity to prepare an onboarding plan for their executive. Or maybe this is something that might happen to you within the next weeks or months. We know that there's always a constant change in our profession, and especially since we work so closely with managers. So all of a sudden it might happen that your executive is changing the role, is leaving the company, gets fired. Of course, this happens as well. And all of a sudden we are facing the situation that a new manager is waiting to jump into this role, and we are the ones preparing the onboarding. And this is why it is super crucial that you have a fantastic start with your executive by preparing an onboarding plan, which does not only help him or her, but of course you as well, to get in touch with your new executive, to understand the ways of working, the working styles, meeting preferences, and so much more. So here you go. Congrats. You just won a new boss. Some of you think, oh, wow, what a fantastic experience now, because I've been working with my former boss for way too long. Or the other ones will say, oh, my goodness, I'm going to miss my old boss already. So whatever situation it might wait for you, I always say it is a great opportunity to get into a new project, into a new working environment with your manager, because it also means that you are able to showcase your skills, to showcase your profile and portfolio, and really show why your role is vital and why your role is important. This is why I brought you my personal 10-point strategy plan when it comes to onboarding a new manager. And please forgive me if I say or if I mention the male version, because usually we at least in Germany, many assistants have male bosses, and probably in the US as well, or wherever you are located. So forgive me if I usually say he instead of she, but of course we all know that there are great female leaders out there. So here is number 1, connect. Well, it's always interesting to see how you can actually connect with your executive, because of course we know from the day we learn that you will get a new boss, there's so much time. So it is always interesting how you can connect with your manager without, of course, knowing exactly when is the day one your boss might come to the office and actually work with you. So whenever you think about how to start, you can reach out to your manager, of course, very proactively by an email. Welcome him to his new function. Say, hello, I'm your new assistant. Looking forward to meeting you. Looking forward to working with you. It would be wonderful if we can set up a phone call, because I'll love to hear more about you, about the way we are supposed to work together. I would love to have your ideas about the partnership we're about to establish, because this is a very crucial part in the beginning. So once you send the email, I'm sure you'll get a reply pretty fast with a very happy boss hearing from you proactively and getting ready for a call. Of course, social media offers us a lot of information, and people like to get connected, even if they haven't met in person before. So I always would like to point out that concentrate on the professional network like LinkedIn. Of course, it is much easier to connect with your future manager on LinkedIn than on Facebook, because Facebook is still, at least to me, more private channel. So you might want to be a little bit careful with that. But it would be wonderful to network with your manager already on LinkedIn, because he has also an insight on your profile there. If you have an updated LinkedIn profile, if you have your skills there, if you have your portfolio there, it would be wonderful for him to get an already pre information on your profile, which is very, very important as well. Oops, let's see. Cannot switch here at the moment. Let's see. Emily, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I cannot switch the page all of a sudden. Don't ask me why.
Let's see.
Oh, is it going now? Yeah, now it works. Very interesting. Sorry about that. Now it works. Sorry about the technical things here. So here we are already. Number 2, ask the right questions. It's all about asking the right questions, because of course you want to know as much as possible about your future manager. And of course it means what's his profile? What are the topics I need to know as an assistant in terms of working style, for example? Like, how does he wants to have the day scheduled? When is usually the starting hour? When is it usually the ending hour? When is he coming in? What is the kind of work style he has? Does he likes to work long hours? Is he an early bird, or whatever you need to plan? Also in terms of breaks, in terms of lunches. I think this is the most important thing, to really understand the style your manager might have. Meeting preferences is a huge topic as well, as we all know that our managers spending a lot of time in meetings, and especially the meetings have been changed all over the companies at various times. So you have either the virtual meetings, you have conference calls, of course you have the classical face-to-face meetings. So whatever is there on a preference from your managers, you need to write this down. Of course, don't forget to ask about your own meeting preference in terms of what is the touch base you're going to have with your managers. Because in the onboarding process, sometimes assistants totally forget about themselves. They always arrange so many things around the manager, around the team, about other executives. And all of a sudden they find out, phew, I totally forgot to set up my own face-to-face meeting with my managers. So I strongly recommend to put your name on the top of the list. So what is the preference you would like to have with your manager? Is it the kind of a 5-minute meeting each day to get through the priorities, or is it a 1 hour or half an hour meeting once a week? So of course your manager will let you know about those preferences, but it's also good to be vocal about it from your perspective, to give some ideas how you've been dealing with the meetings with the former executive. Maybe there's some inspiration you want to pass on. So it's good that you set the dialogue as well. The open door policy, I mean, especially, of course, the new work generation has changed during the last years. A lot of executives are actually sitting on an open space area, but of course, there are still very traditional office environments where the executive has their own office and the door is either closed or open. And this is something I think which is also very important to really understand. Does he prefer to have the door closed? How does he want to deal when he's in, when he's out? Should people get to you first and ask for a meeting if they need to see him spontaneously? So there are quite some tricky things here you want to find out and you want to note down and you want to give him some advice how it was handled in the past maybe. It's always a little tricky to tell too much about the past because I'm sure you wouldn't like if your executive comes to you and say, oh, by the way, with my other assistant, with my former assistant, I've been doing it, the meetings, the face-to-face meeting this way or that way. So it's always a bit sensitive to give some ideas how everything was running in the past. But if you're absolutely convinced and if you're positive that this is a very inspiring idea and initiative you want to share with your new executive, then go for it. Just be open, be transparent, and just explain it in a very neutral way how it was handled in the past. And this might be an opportunity for him. This might be an idea to continue like this. But of course, everyone is open for new requirements. Then, of course, although we all live in the digital world, there's still mail coming in, physical mail coming in. So this is something you want to discuss with your manager as well, how he wants to deal with the mail. Is it a folder you're preparing for him where he goes through once a day, or does he want to have every single thing that's coming in placed at his desk right away? These are a few things you want to note down maybe. And also, if he wants to have a specifically agenda point maybe in his schedule each day, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes slot where he can actually go through the mail and make notes on it, pass it on to other people, pass it back to you, especially have time to read it when there are invitations coming in. You know what's coming. There's a lot of junk coming in as well. So of course, are you authorized to throw away stuff where you believe it has nothing to do with his basically schedule, with his work? Are you allowed to pass on a few things to colleagues? Are you allowed to pass on things to other departments? So I think there can be a few rules you want to check with him and see how he would like to have the mail handled. Travel preferences. This is a huge topic because most of our managers are up in the air or on the train or in the car. So of course they come with an amount of preferences, especially when you go through those so-called loyalty programs. Favorite airlines, favorite car companies, favorite hotel chains, and of course they all have their special preferences. But don't forget that there's always a travel policy in place in your company. So this is something, of course, you would like to mention to your manager right in the beginning. This is our travel policy. I'm happy to take over and note down what your preferences are, and we can see how we can match them. So I think it's quite important that you collect all those cards, the loyalty cards, make a copy of them, save them somewhere, so you have everything together the next time you update or you install a travel profile for your manager, and then you should be all set, I believe. Home office options. Of course, once again, we live in a new generation of new work. Home office is something that is absolutely a standard to many companies nowadays. Not only to the employees, but also, of course, to the executives. So you might want to ask here as well, do you have a home office manager, or does he or she prefer to be in the office whenever they are not traveling? So this is something you might want to check as well. Does your manager want to have a fixed home office day? Is it always a Tuesday? Is it always a Wednesday? Because this is also pretty crucial for you in terms of meeting coordination, in terms of meeting organization, in terms of traveling. So you might want to get a feeling how your future manager would like to have this handled in terms of working from home or not. I don't know why, but I cannot click again. Oh, now it's working. Perfect. Personal requirements. Here we are. Of course, as an executive, sometimes we need to do some personal things, and not every one of you likes it. I always have a constant discussion in my workshops and seminars about assistants who really, really have a hard time doing a lot of private stuff for their managers. I think everyone, of course, needs to decide this for themselves. And of course, it's a matter of are you ready to do this deal or not when you apply for a new job and you are aware that there's a certain amount of private requirements and demands as well. But of course, even if you don't know how much it will be, how much an amount it will be in your role, it is very important to get very important information in terms of the things you need to write down when something happens, especially when there's an emergency. Of course, we don't want to have emergency in the office, but it might happen, especially when your boss is traveling and you want to make sure that you have all the names and contacts of the relevant family members. Might be a wife, might be a husband, might be a brother or a sister or a good friend, depending, of course, on the status of your manager. But this is something which is very, very crucial for the profile you are installing with your manager. But of course, there are also the general or private information you might want to write down. Like, is there, for example, someone working in a household for your manager? Is there maybe an au pair? Is there someone taking care of the garden or the cleaning that might be relevant for you to have this number? You never know sometimes from the family who's actually calling the office, and you might want to note down all those names and numbers, especially as au pairs. I've been an au pair myself, as I mentioned before, so I had all the numbers, of course, of my host parents. So whenever I called them, I usually had the assistant on the phone. So this is something which is quite important to write down as well. The lunch desires, of course, we all want to eat, and your manager probably has some special wishes around the lunch. So whenever you organize lunches, whenever you're going to run for a lunch for him, is he more the pizza guy or is he more into the healthy eating? Of course, there are many, many things you want to write down, especially when it comes to food allergies. Also, the coffee and tea preferences in the morning, whenever there's meetings going on. This is the deal you make with your executive. This is the things you discuss with your executive. Maybe you are lucky to have an executive who says, don't worry, I'll take care of my tea and coffee myself, and even the lunch is good for me when I manage myself. Maybe this is the moment where I have the time to get out of the office and just grab my own lunch. But of course, there will be always meetings where you order lunch in, so you really want to write down what the preferences are and especially be aware of the allergies. Here comes number 4, and this is the information package. I'm sure we all know from ourselves, whenever we enter a new role, whenever we enter a new organization, there's so much to read and to really understand what's happening in the company. And especially for an executive, especially for a manager, it is quite helpful if the assistant is organizing a lot of information and is putting the relevant data together in a file. Of course, we all want to be digital, so it is a fantastic opportunity to put together something on OneNote, to have relevant data on OneNote you can share with your manager. Office 365 offers a wonderful opportunity to work in a wonderful way and really to promote a digital workplace. And this is, I think, the future, and it really brings the level of cooperation on a really, really new way of working together between a management assistant and an executive. But sometimes paper is needed. So think about putting everything on digital. Think about maybe creating also a binder, put it in his office, have it ready whenever he or she needs it. And it should start, of course, by showing how is our organization structured, the organization charts, what is happening not only in the department your new manager is going to work, but the whole organization, of course. So there's a lot of information on job descriptions. There's a lot of information on departments, the goals of the departments, the head of the departments, the people around those departments. I think there's a lot of information to digest. A classical company presentation should be included. The latest version should be available. Everyone has this. It's usually even shown on the websites of companies. So of course, the more detailed version you are able to bring to your manager, the best. I think this is really, really important, where the strategy is included, the vision, the mission is included, the ways of working, the values. There's so much information your manager might read through once again. Think about handbooks and guidelines that there are useful for your manager. Of course, you need to see in a certain detailed way, is it informative for him, or is it too much information? Maybe it's enough if I have it in my desk, if I have it with me. Whenever he needs an information, I'll just bring him the relevant page. So think about the ways he really needs a full handbook or a guideline. But if there's anything crucial he needs to know and he needs to have, put it in the binder and put it on the file. Compliance guide, this is very, very important, especially since we are facing now topics like cybersecurity, data protection, GDPR. There are new things happening in this world, and especially the compliance is a very crucial topic to any employee in the company. So this is something you might want to place as well when you put all the information together. Think about the travel regulations, the travel policy, what I mentioned before. This is something which needs to be seen by your manager. Think about also HR relevant data. He might needs to see bonus programs, or whoever is allowed to get a company car from his team, so that he has some backgrounds on contracts. He has some backgrounds on regulations. I think this is also very helpful, especially when he is diving into his own direct reports and how they are organized and how they are actually how they were hired in their relevant functions. Of course, the financial overview and figures, even if you're not working for a chief finance officer, I think it is pretty important for every executive in the company to have a financial overview and to see the latest figures, what's going on, and this might include even stock shares depending of the status of the company. Is it a bigger company, a smaller company, privately owned? Is it on stock or not? So I think the data in terms of finance should be a huge part in this set of preparations and in this set of data. Here we are, number 5. Think about the stakeholders and the meeting management. So once you've actually get into the working and meeting style of your future manager, you can really start thinking of setting up the first meetings and calls. Think about the way you want to schedule the agenda for your manager. Have everything written in paper and digital, of course. Of course, always be very transparent with the direct reports. Keep them in the loop. Tell them that you've talked to your manager, you have everything what you need, and you are now starting to set up the first meetings. So there might be weekly meetings, there might be monthly meetings, quarterly meeting, half-year meetings. You all know that already, but try to be very transparent and open in terms of communication with the direct reports, because these are the ones who are going to deal with your manager the most. Think about also the relevant stakeholders he will be in touch with. Include them also in your meeting planning. Think about the way you can have them involved in the onboarding, because these are the people he needs to see during the first days. There are always other very important key people who need to know your new manager, like project managers who are not directly reporting to him. The HR department is always quite crucial and important. Maybe there's even a workers' council that your manager needs to shake hands with. So always think of those stakeholders you might not have to deal with every single day, but especially in an onboarding process, I think it's quite important that he gets to see the faces, he gets to understand the names, the roles, and the functions. And also, of course, some companies really deal with hierarchies. So be absolutely attentive in terms of how you set up the meeting. So when your new manager is arriving on day one, let's say he's the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer, I think it's always good to have a catch up with the CEO first instead of with one of the project managers. Of course, we all know that. So depending how strongly your company is thinking and living into hierarchies, just pay attention to this once you start setting up the meetings. And here we are again. Don't forget to think of your own daily or weekly touch base meetings. This is really, really important. And also that he or she sees that it's important for you and it's very relevant for you that you have your regular touch base, and maybe you had an experience with one of your former executives that the regular touch base didn't work quite well. So this is why there's always a fantastic potential that you can set up a new set of meetings with your new manager. And it could be the 5-minute meeting every single morning to go through the priorities of the day, to go through the agenda, to go through emails, or it can be, of course, the daily or weekly touch base. Yummy, time for lunch. Think about the lunch dates. Yeah, I mean, we all know how important the structures are in a company, and building up structures is always sounds so easy. And usually, our executives are pretty good at setting up structures. But as we all know, management assistants are very much needed also for the cultures. And socializing is a huge factor when it comes to a good culture. And you want to help your manager also on a social way to get onboarded, to meet those people he needs to meet, and to really have the opportunity to shake a hand, to introduce himself, and to have a fantastic first impression. Because we assistants are not only responsible for our own brand, but we can really shape the brand of our managers. And this is why the socializing is a huge, huge topic as well. So here we are. Don't forget the hierarchies. The levels are quite important. But it's also important and crucial that he knows basically everyone. And this includes the receptionist and includes the janitor. And not only the top managers, not only those he's usually sitting with around the table, discussing on leadership, discussing on over strategies. But don't forget how important the other persons are. The moment when they are passing your boss, he needs to know the name and he needs to know the face, because those are the very important people and employees. They make this company work on a different level, of course, but it helps to succeed. And this is why it is also crucial to say hi there and get introduced by them. Don't forget the HR people, because they are also very, very important of the company. And as I mentioned before, the Works Council could be also some of the first lunch buddies of your new manager, or maybe if it's not for lunch, it could be a quick coffee talk. So these are those little social moments where you actually organize a date for your manager. Of course, go through these ideas with your manager. Don't just put them in the agenda. Make a list, go through every single name, and propose to your manager that you believe that this is a good schedule, and these are the ones you should see first, maybe during the first week, and these are the ones that can actually wait, and then get the feedback from your manager how he would like to have it handled. Maybe he's more the coffee guy, maybe he's more the lunch guy, maybe he prefers a lunch on site, maybe especially when he wants to talk with HR or the Works Council, he said, hey, maybe book us a table externally. So these are the little things you might want to find out once you present this list of potential lunch buddies. Of course, it is also quite interesting how he would like to have it handled with a team. Like, is there maybe once a month a lunch with a whole management team or with his direct reports? How is this? How did it happen actually in the past? Maybe there was a nice routine, what you would like to propose to your manager and suggest and say, well, we had a pretty good monthly lunch break where we all went out and we left the office, or there's after work we do once a week. So these are the small things you might want to bring up and give him the room to decide if he wants to keep the traditions or if he or she would like to make a change. And don't forget the external lunch people you might need to see: clients, investors, press people, other strategic stakeholders who are quite important. Maybe not to meet in the first week, but at least during the first month. So these are the names you might want to put together and present him a list, and he will decide which of those people he would like to see first. And don't forget, once again, why not having a lunch date with your own manager? I always arrange these lunch dates. It was always once a month, and I always prefer to go outside with my manager. So this is definitely a meeting I would set up if I were you, and tell him that it's important for you to have a touch base as well during a lunch break, because this is usually where you talk about other things, where you talk about maybe terms of when you would like to have be involved in a new project, when you want to talk about your development, when you maybe want to talk about a little bit on a private side. And this is something you can easily do when you're not in the company, when you're out. And if it's not for a lunch date, maybe arrange a coffee date. Here's number 7: involve relevant departments. Of course, setting up such an onboarding plan is huge. It's a huge, huge project, and it's going to keep you busy, depending, of course, on the hierarchy level of your manager. But of course, you cannot do everything by yourself, and there are relevant departments where you need to rely on. So let's think about ordering a company car. So you are not probably authorized to do that. So involve the facility department, involve the purchasing department, whoever is responsible, maybe the HR department, because you might want to assist here. You might want to be an information source for your manager if he's interested in learning, okay, when is my car ready? What do I need to know? What's happening here? The insurances, how is it handled in the company? So I think it's quite important to be a good contact person, but don't forget that these are the departments who actually do the job and help you to get your job fulfilled. The IT department is also a major contact in terms of ordering relevant equipment like a laptop, a tablet, the mobile phone. There's so much, of course, what is waiting for your manager. So, of course, this is something you might want to harmonize with the IT department and as well HR, because they know what your manager is allowed to get, and then you can be the one who's keeping track on the ordering process, and you can keep your manager informed. HR department in terms of private and confidential documents such as insurance and benefits, and of course contracts. So this is something you might not have 100% access to, but of course, again, you're contact person for your manager. So maybe you are the one asking for these documents, but they are the ones maybe sending them to him. But be involved there and offer your help and think about the documents that are crucial for your manager for the onboarding. If there's a travel department in your company, maybe they are the ones who actually set up the travel profile. So once you have everything together, like we've been talking about before, the loyalty program, cards, and the preferences, of course, needs to be aligned with the travel policy. But once you have everything together, you can pass it on, and then the travel profile is hopefully set up pretty fast, so you can report back to your manager and say, hey, we are on track, you're ready to travel, happy to book your first flights. And here comes day number one. And this usually happens so fast because sometimes you learn, oh, my boss is going to be here in 4 weeks, and you will be super, super busy with the preparation. And all of a sudden, the day one is here, and your manager is standing in front of you. I'm sure you're going to be very excited because you know, wow, I've been working a lot. I've been pretty busy with the onboarding plan, and now the day is finally here. So, what do I need to think of? Of course, the office should be clean and should be ready for your new manager. Think about sending a cleaning person through the office and just be ready that everything is set up in terms of IT, in terms of the phone, the computer, whatever is needed, the printer. Think about all the office supplies that needs to be on the desk. Of course, it is always a fantastic welcome to have some flowers or chocolate ready once your manager enters the office, a personal card from the team. I think this is the way you usually greet new employees. Think about the way what is fitting for your manager. I mean, you've been in touch with this person before. Is it useful to have flowers, or is it chocolate, or maybe another funny little thing that he might like? I think this is something which is always a very nice gesture, especially when you enter a new company. Once your manager is there, offer an office tour. Help him to get around, show him where everyone is sitting, and especially those departments where he has a lot of contact with. Show him what he needs to know, help him with introductions. And again, make sure you stop by the receptionist, make sure you introduce him also to those who are not on the top hierarchy level. That's very important as well. Think about how you would like to offer the lunch. Do you want to order something in to keep it a little bit relaxed? Or do you think it's wise to send him to the cafeteria that everyone sees him so he gets around and people can greet him, people can have a short chat? So this is something you might want to check with your boss in advance. Of course, you can offer to join him. You can bring the team together. You can bring the leadership team together, or the closest direct report, so you can go as a team. Here's number 9, become a benchmark, because it is a huge, huge project you just managed. So be proud of yourself, really clap your shoulder, be vocal about it, talk to your assistant colleagues, tell them how you mastered this project, and be bold and vocal about it. Talk to HR. Think about the way you have started such a project. Think about the templates you created. Think about all the contacts that were helpful for you. Maybe there were some best practice information you received from other assistants, which you included in your onboarding plan. Also reflect on the successes and the failures. I mean, in such a project, there's always things you want to look back at and be proud and say, wow, that was a huge success. He really enjoyed this onboarding process. Or maybe after a while, you get a feedback from your manager and you say, well, maybe I should have thought about this and that. So this is something you might want to include and put a little information package together for other assistants in your company and HR, where you can actually share the method you've created. And then it is time to relax because you did it. Congratulations. It's a fantastic project. I always enjoyed it, although of course it meant that I just lost a boss. Sometimes I was happy, sometimes I was not so happy to lose a boss. But for me, I always enjoyed these onboarding processes, and I read a lot online. Of course, I've been online on various forums on social media where I had a information package from other assistants, what they have been doing. So this is really a time-consuming project, and this is something you can be super, super proud of. But now it's time to relax. Now it's time to give it into the hands of your manager and to really create a routine of working, to find your working style, and to be in a wonderful strategic partnership with your executive. And now the really, really, really interesting part starts, because now you have all the opportunity to create a wonderful working relationship with your executive. And I'm sure he saw or she saw already how brilliant you did with this onboarding plan. So this was already a fantastic opportunity for you to showcase your skill and to be proud of these organization and coordination skills. Now comes really the daily business, the calendar management, the travel management. Maybe you have the opportunity to jump into a project. I think it's all in your hands now. The moment you've been there from day one, you've been supporting your manager, and now bring it to the next level, be there and offer your help, and then you will actually invest in your portfolio and profile as well. So here's a short summary before we're gonna end up, and I'm ready for your questions. Be proactive, take the lead on the of the onboarding process, because it's all in your hands. You are the ones creating such an onboarding process. Don't forget to involve the relevant stakeholders. It is not only on your shoulders. Don't forget, there will be always supportive departments around you. And once you've managed it, don't forget to be proud of yourself. You've set maybe a fantastic benchmark, and you can now help others inside and maybe even outside your organization to set up wonderful onboarding process. And this is a fun thing. And I really hope I was able to give you some advice for your next onboarding phase. Please stay in touch. You'll find me on social media. I would love to hear from you, and looking forward to getting your questions now. So back to you, Emily. Thank you.
Thanks, Diana. Quick reminder for those who are asking, you can download a copy of the slides now underneath the handout tab on the GoToWebinar toolbar. That's underneath the handout tab. You can download a PDF version of the slides. I'd also like to remind everyone that now is the time to submit your questions underneath the questions tab on the toolbar. I'll jump right in to our first question, Diana, and it's around onboarding those that may be reporting to your executive. So if you're a director or a manager reporting to your executive, what would that onboarding process look like? And what would you do differently than onboarding someone that you would be supporting directly?
You mean like there would be a director reporting to my manager, or?
Exactly.
And does this person might have an assistant as well? That's a good question, huh?
We'll
Because
assume not for this question, but certainly,
yeah.
yeah, we'll assume that this person will not have an assistant.
Okay, so then I think the best would be also to see how you can get support from the HR department, because as we know, not everyone has an assistant, but HR should be there and should be ready to help with the onboarding and be a very good partner to bring those who might not work on the C level to the company as well. I think it's always good to reach out to potential colleagues over social media, on LinkedIn. Always go to these channels, have a look who's already listed in the company, who can you reach out to, who can you connect to prior to your first day, and then you might find very valuable information there, people who were ready to help out with you with your onboarding and get you ready for your number one day.
Great, thanks, Diana. I have another question, and this is a quick one. How many C-suite executives per assistant do you think is a good balance? So if you're an assistant and you might be supporting multiple executives, I don't know if you've been in that position before.
Yes, I worked for 3 once.
Okay. Can you walk us through your process for that, and just your personal opinion on what is really the maximum an assistant can handle, assuming they're C-suite executives?
Oh my goodness, I know that especially in America, assistants work for many executives. Honestly, the 3 I had was absolutely to me a maximum, because of course, we all have different profiles, but I always wanted to be involved in content work. I never wanted to be seen as the one who's only doing travel management and calendar management. So I always fought for being involved in projects. And of course, when you have 5 or 6 executives and they need to have the basic organization support and travel support and agenda support, this doesn't give you any room to grow. This doesn't give you any opportunity to really say, hey, I would love to be involved in this project, or I would like to set up a new process here, because there will always someone standing behind you asking for your organizational admin support. But I know this is a very tough topic, and but in Germany, luckily, we still have a lot of situations where you only work for one executive or two. And in my case, and I've been on the road for 17 years now, the maximum was 3. But honestly, 3 was already pretty tough,
I
especially
think
on the
the
C-suite.
most, yeah, I think the most I've heard, one EA at a forum shared that she supported 9,
Wow.
and
Phew.
I can't even imagine
I hope
that.
I hope she makes a good salary.
I hope so. She deserves it.
Yeah, she does.
So let's say you have an executive who you onboard and they're demanding a lot of time and you
Yes.
are supporting others. How
Mhm.
do you go about setting the workload expectation?
Well, I would be very transparent to the new executive from day one, because he's the new kid on the block, right? So he's a new one in the team. So be very vocal and transparent about your job description. So this is why it is so crucial that you actually sit together with your new manager right away. Go through your job description. Tell him what you're currently working on. What is the projects you have on your desk? What is the standard work you are doing? What is executive 1 or 2 needs from you on a regular basis? So the new executive has a feeling how much workload there's actually on your shoulders. So he can really think about the way he works with you together. And of course, here, once again, we have the hierarchy problem. If you are supporting a C-level executive and then you have maybe 2 directors, it's quite hard to tell the directors, hey, you're going to be my priority number 1. The C-level needs to wait. I think it is crucial to really have everyone involved. I used to do that when I was working for those 3 managers I just mentioned. I try to get them at least once a week around the table, because I wanted to set with them together the priorities for the month. And I didn't want to be the one going to one manager telling them, hey, the other one is quite not happy that I'm working too much for you. So I wanted them to sit around the table, to look in each other's eyes and tell them directly, tell the other managers directly, hey, I think you're pulling too hard on Diana at the moment. We need her too. So I really tried to get out of this very critical and political situation. And this is why we had once a week a meeting all together, and it worked out pretty fine. And we set priorities, and it helped us all to work together very successfully.
Diana, our next question is about pacing out some of this onboarding. Um, what are your thoughts around? I mean, it can be a lot, it can be overwhelming. The
Yes.
first day, the first week for an executive. So, do you have any comments around how you would space out this process?
You mean just simply focus on the important stuff, you mean, or?
Yeah, we had a few comments around what would the timeline look like, because obviously there's a lot to
Yeah.
go through, and
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
lot to fill them in on. So just from a timeline perspective, would you pace out much of this onboarding process over a week, over 2 weeks? What does that timeline look like?
Well, that's always depending, of course, how fast a new executive comes on board. Sometimes, one executive has been fired one day, and then there's another one sitting in the same seat the other day. So, of course, there's not much time to really prepare an onboarding process. Um, it's basically what I said in the beginning. The moment you have your executive on the phone, ask questions, ask as many questions, ask the way he wants to have the priority set, give some ideas. Of course, presenting him the data he needs to read is very, very important. I think it can wait to arrange lunch dates, but the moment it is really company related and crucial information in terms of financial figures, this is the stuff he needs to have in the hands as soon as possible, depending, of course, on his role. But other than that, I would definitely ask questions and see, okay, what's his priorities, what's her priorities, and then go through these elements and set the plan. And sometimes it needs to be very fast. Yeah.
Diana, we have a lot of questions around continuing this conversation around onboarding, around templates, if there's anything that they can access and then further support. And I would just encourage everyone to reach out to Diana directly so you can see her email.
Yes.
On the slide, you can also see her Facebook group, and then also the ELS LinkedIn group, as well, the administrative professionals group. These are all resources where you could continue this conversation and seek out help, and then, of course, email Diana directly for more information.
Absolutely. Happy to answer any remaining questions.
Perfect. Diana, another question that we have is around virtual assistants. I'm not sure how much experience you have in supporting somebody virtually,
Mhm.
but is there any tips for somebody who is supporting someone either remote or
Yeah.
virtually and onboarding that way?
Well, of course, that's a different story indeed. And we know that virtual assistants are coming more and more. Funny thing is that in Germany, actually, we are not that far. We have a few, but I know that in the US and in the UK especially, there are more virtual assistants in the market. Of course, that's quite tough because probably you're not going to be there on the day one when your executive is entering an organization. You're not there. This makes it quite hard, of course, to really get involved from day one. But of course, here again, ask the questions, reach out proactively, and set the priorities together with your manager. And once you have the opportunity, do a Skype call, a FaceTime call, at least that you get to see the face and have a feeling of the other person on the other side. And it will be a more digital work, of course. It will be interesting to see how the success of such an onboarding will be compared to someone who's actually sitting in the office, who's actually the one who's welcoming a manager on day one, who's the one bringing you around in the company, offering an office tour, because these are the things you cannot do. And this is why a network is super important. You are the ones, when you work virtually, that you set up the people to be there and to be ready to welcome your manager when he's there, when he needs help. And this is why you need to know your own stakeholders. You need to know the people pretty well from the various departments that they are there and they are able to help also in terms of technical questions, setting up a new laptop, setting up a new mobile phone. These are the ones you usually do as an assistant when you're standing next to your manager. Of course, it's not helping when you're not there. So be aware that in that case, a network is absolutely essential and that you have everyone in place and everyone ready once the new executive is there.
Diana, do you have any recommendations on resources around change management, just in general? So understanding how change impacts the organization, impacts the team. Any resources you can recommend?
Well, I would definitely have a lot of them, but they are all in German, I have to say. But of course, here you have your Facebook and LinkedIn groups, and I'm a member of many amazing groups. Happy to invite people who are interested to learn more about virtual connecting on these forums and groups. So please reach out to me. I'm happy to bring you to these groups. You will find a lot of peers there. You'll find a lot of benefits by just simply reading through everything, and there's a lot of things around change going on. So yeah, just connect with me online and I'll happy to share my groups with you.
Diana, do you have a most memorable experience in onboarding an executive that you could share with us?
I must say, since I really wanted to do it in a very detailed way, and this is why I came up with a 10-point strategy plan, like I just presented to you, because I really wanted to be my manager to be successful from day number one. And I know when he's happy that I'm happy too. And the most gift, of course, I was receiving when they came to me even in the middle of onboarding process and gave me feedback and said, wow, you are taking me here on an onboarding journey I've never had before. Thank you so much. And this is the greatest gift and acknowledgement you can have it as an assistant when you receive a feedback from someone you actually don't work with yet. You haven't seen maybe yet, but those memorable connections you make, sometimes virtually because you haven't met this person before, and this gives you a wonderful boost in a future corporation, and that you know that you're doing the right thing. And we all love to organize, we all love to coordinate. This is why we all became assistants, or why we all became office manager, all these titles there out there. And once there's someone who's actually really seeing the work, what is behind, I think that's fantastic. And I always enjoyed receiving such a feedback. Yeah. And even one time I had a wife calling me telling me, hey, I think my husband is ready to come to office tomorrow. What I heard, you did a good job on the onboarding. I'm happy to send him over tomorrow to the office. This actually happened once.
Um, Diana, we have one story that I just wanted to quickly share. And someone had mentioned that they recently onboarded their fourth executive in 19 years with a company.
Okay.
And the boss recommended to the president that this person receive a bonus for the outstanding work they did for their onboarding process. And so they were recognized
Wow.
and compensated for building out a onboarding process for a really
Fantastic.
important executive. So I think that that's something important to keep in mind. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's absolutely valid point. And if you ever have the chance, and if you're bold enough, and if you are confident enough to bring this up, like, hey, maybe this is one of my goals. Maybe I can put this down as a bonus measurement. You can talk to HR about it. If they believe that once this has been done and you created such a fantastic benchmark, you will be the one, be the mentor, be the coach for other assistants in your company, where you can actually help them to set the same level of onboarding. So of course, it's always a matter how you want to negotiate this, but it's wonderful. I never got a bonus for it, sadly, but maybe I should have asked. So that's a nice story. Thanks for sharing that, Emily.
it's true. Sometimes you have to ask. You can't
Exactly.
expect it,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
it's true. It's
um,
absolutely true. Yeah.
so this will be our last question slash comment. The question is around onboarding a executive assistant.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of this would translate even
Mhm.
to onboarding an executive assistant. Is there anything off the top of your head? I know I'm putting you on the spot, Diana. Anything you would do differently in regards to onboarding an EA?
Yes, well, of course, I would definitely, from my perspective, I would like to onboard this EA the same way I would wish I would be onboarded. And honestly, throughout my career, there was not a very good onboarding when I started my roles. So I never had this actually happening in my career, because when I left, I usually never met the other EAs who took over. But I always said to myself, if I ever had have the chance to onboard my successor, it will be just the way I would have hoped to get onboarded. So I would love to have like a twin there, and that she or he, maybe we get lucky, it's a male assistant, is able to perform the same way I'm performing, and this person has the same access to all the information, to all those information which are not always um, right at the desk, all those political and hierarchy information that is important to know. But as I said, I'm a socialista. I love to build bridges. I always wanted to help people achieve their goals. I wanted to have even my peers around me to be successful. I didn't see it as a challenge or competition. So the moment when I succeed onboarding someone, and no matter what function it is a joy for me when I see them succeed. So I would definitely recommend taking those 10 points as well. Of course, structure them a bit different and think about the way what you as an assistant might need and what you would have loved to receive from those onboarding people around you.
Thank you so much, Diana, for today. I'd really like to express my gratitude to you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule and as you're traveling to speak with us today. Diana will be delivering more ELSX webinars for executive assistants throughout this fall, and you can register for any of those or any of our upcoming webinars at elsforum.com. As a reminder, I'd like to remind you that you can download a copy of the slides under the handout tab on the toolbar, and a recording of the webinar and a certificate of attendance will be emailed to you tomorrow. I hope you have enjoyed today's ELSX, and a final thank you to everyone for joining us and for participating. We hope you have a wonderful week, and I wish you continued success. Take care.
Thank you, Emily. Bye bye, everyone.